Hello, I know it's been a long time coming, so I'm finally here with the video. And I was actually kind of curious, like, what would be the best type of video to get out there. And I had a few ideas. One was to explain differences between NA and EU. I've done that a lot. I've talked to people about it before. It's not anything new to people who have. I'm not sure if I've got it out in like any of my gameplays or anything. You might have heard some of the differences before. But I don't think that is in the scope of this video. For those of you who don't know, I have lived in both North America and Europe for around 2 years in Europe. Been playing on EU West on and off. I lived in Berlin for a few months. It was kind of hard to play. Now I'm in France and I finally have a decent setup. I grew up in Florida. So the video I want to be talking about today is something that got a fair amount of backlash last time, but I think backlash is good. I think it means that as long as you're confident in what you're saying and you believe it's true, then you should continue to do things in spite of backlash. Obviously, there's oftentimes backlash is justified. You have to realize that people generally will have a good reason for it. There's a lot of things that have backlash that for very obvious reasons, and it's not okay to just blindly follow your opinion because you believe that. But this is something that this is a topic like pretty much anything in League of Legends. Remember, this is a community of fairly young people, so it's just gonna happen like this. The sophistry is gonna tend to win over I guess the Socratic method being the sounds like I just took a philosophy class, but yeah, sophistry might tend to win over the Socratic method, or just reasonable points, and this is the one I want to make now, and I just want to get it out there. I don't really I'll post it to the boards. I don't see it getting a great response, but we'll see. So this is something that I have been fucking flabbergasted by, because I don't understand why. But Hishinshin, okay, has been around since season 1. I was around since season 2, and I have remembered him bitching about stuff that wasn't true since season 2. He's famous for bitching about stuff that isn't true, and suddenly he's getting recognition. Now, I'm not going to go into why this is the case, but I will defend that it is not the current state of top lane. Okay, let's just look at the points. I've watched these videos and they're frankly mind-numbing. They go over all these points, these fallacies and stuff. You can call any champion in the game overpowered, okay? You can figure out something that's insane about every champion. I'm pulling up a champion list right now. Aatrox, he just hits you and sustains forever, and he has 2 lives. Ari, she has 1,000,000 dashes, and her pick potential is insane. Akali, she sticks to you forever. That's actually a champion he bitches about specifically. Like, if you try, and if you apply a level of logic, I watched his last video. I don't know why. I watched like 5 minutes into it. And I have given him more credit on the other videos, but I'm not going to sit through an hour every time to try to listen to it, because it's not been substantiative for hours, so why would I give it more time? His argument in this latest video one of them was that there are high impact abilities on low cooldowns, and I think he used Riven and maybe Ornn as an example of like their W's. And okay, every champion has a high impact ability. I think he compares every champion to Jax, basically. Jax's Counter-Strike is on just a little bit longer of a cooldown than Riven's Q, I believe. I think it's like, let's pull this up. Jax Counter-Strike is on a 16-second cooldown at level 1. So it's basically the same. Yes, Riven can buffer her Qs to get a slightly bigger advantage, but like, you don't want Jax to be able to Counter-Strike at every single time. If anything, that window's a little close. It requires quite a bit of skill on the Riven's part, and all Jax has to do is sit back for 3 seconds while it's on cooldown. So if that's his argument, that it's a high impact ability on a low cooldown, then what's the basis for a low cooldown? The other thing is that champions are supposed to have things like that. They're supposed to have things that are ridiculous. League of Legends doesn't do this as well as, say, Dota, as far as champions having a strong identity. Every champion is basically very similar to another champion. There's no champions that really stand out, and this is something that Riot has made it clear that they want to do. They want to make most champions. They don't want any hard counters. They don't want any particularly crazy champions that just do things that no other champion can do. They prefer to have every champion have an interesting kit. Granted, I love League of Legends, an interesting kit that can just have a ton of interactions with basically every champion of the game, and they've done a wonderful job of that. But that basically means that every champion does some cool shit, and other champions also do cool shit to counter it, and there's not really anything, there's no champions that stand out as being particularly weak or strong. His other arguments in this video were that top lane had a ridiculous win rate spread, but then when he actually went to the champion page, it wasn't any worse than other champions. He's saying that AD carries are drawing 3 out of 6 bans in LCS, and granted, I follow LCK more than LCS, but I'm seeing top laners draw 2 bans a game easily. Like every game, we're seeing like a Jace flat or something like that. That's not. There's 5 roles, and I'm talking about first rotation bans. There's 5 roles, and if you're getting 2 bans out of all 10, then you're effectively drawing your roles average rate, what it should be drawing, because obviously there's 5 roles and 10 bans. And if you're arguing that Vlad and Jace are the only strong champions, that's way better than most metas that we've had. If you're arguing that tanks deal too much damage, welcome to what everyone has been bitching about since Season 1, Season 2. It's just not the case. Like, top laners in solo queue always play carries, pretty much. Top laners in competitive tend to always play tanks. In this meta, we're seeing fairly few tanks. Like, we're not seeing as many tanks as we were in the Ardent meta that was just a little bit ago. I can't understand why people are bitching now. This meta is amazing compared to the Ardent meta. If you're saying that Spellbook is a problem, maybe, but, well, definitely at this point. The Inspiration Tree is obviously a little bit overtuned, but that's not what has been being bitched about. It's an interesting rune at least, and of course once we see a lot of it, it becomes not interesting, but I mean, just today, or just yesterday, and this is kind of what inspired me to make this video, I'm worried that Riot will give in to the community feedback that seems to be based off just liking to hear some guy bitch, that top lane is not in a great state right now. Top lane is in a pretty good state. Like, people have always bitched about top lane. Top laners have always bitched about top lane. I don't know why it's acceptable that specifically Hishinshin is now getting very positive feedback on his videos that just don't apply any sort of logic. Every single statement he makes is fallacious. The videos he's brought in other people into are just, they don't accomplish anything. They're not stimulating in the least. It's incredible that people believe this. It's so easy to debunk, and I think, granted, I don't want this guy to be ousted by the community because of his past and reputation, right? He deserves to be heard out. I heard him out, and now I'm making this video so I can be heard out and say that this is shit, just like it used to be. If he changed something, then granted, I would want to give him another shot, and that's why I have been giving him other shots. But so far, the bitching is the same as it's always been. So top lane is in a great state, really. We've seen a giant diversity in top laners. Top lane is the most diverse role, I believe, in competitive play from a strict champions played standpoint. Last season, it's got to be this season too. Yes, there's more top laners in the game, but we're seeing more champion. Like, we're seeing a champion pool of, like, I remember last season just counting out at some point all the viable top laners and getting to like 13 or 14, like the champions we've seen. We've seen Sion versus Alawi. We've seen Gangplank versus Riven in LCK in just Season 8. And these aren't like cheese strategies. These are viable picks. So the fact that you can bitch about a tank meta is insane. Yes, Sion's a tank. But these are fun, different champions than we typically see. And just because you got stomped by an off-roll Ornn because you tried to face tank into him doesn't mean that top lane is imbalanced. It's always been like that. Go play mid lane or something if you don't like top lane. It's not going to change. I hope they don't do something crazy to it, because frankly that's unhealthy for the game. You know, I've seen the way other games go when community feedback starts to overtake real developers logically making decisions who know what they're doing. Now, contrary to popular belief, Winston Churchill did not say the best argument against democracy is a 5-minute conversation with the average voter. I saw that on a forum the other day, and I had to fact check it. And no, he didn't say that. In fact, according to the Winston Churchill Foundation, he was a lot more positive of an outlook. He had a much more positive outlook towards the other viewer. Holy shit! Towards the average voter. Sorry, I was spacing on the word optimistic. He had a much more optimistic outlook towards the average voter. And I think that's the case. I think that the average person can be smart, but I think that you need to give people credit as a whole, as groups, to be misled. And I think, granted, for the most part, democracy works, fairly well. That when people are in an outroar about things, it can work. But at the same time, especially with something like a video game, where people are more likely to base their opinions off like memes and general community direction than they are like a really logical view on something. And I think that type of thing, it can't be, the game can't be balanced around that. And if Riot goes on that direction, it's going to be very, very harmful for the game as a whole. So I hope they don't bend. Traditionally, they have been pretty good about it. But this does feel like a new thing. I've been around since Season 2, and I've watched a lot of these things come and go, and I've seen the same patterns emerge over and over and over again. I'm not saying I'm just like OG, but I've seen enough of this stuff that it's pretty clear to me that this does seem like a bigger community backlash towards kind of a non-problem than we've seen before, and rather this is the cumulative effect of 8 seasons of top lane being this one way, and top laners have just wanted to keep playing top lane despite it always being like that. I don't know, but yeah, that's what I have to say on the matter. I know this went a little long, but I'm trying to get everything out there. I didn't want to try to make this super concise and get everything in as quickly as possible, just because I wanted to cover all my bases, and I want it also to be clear that like this is a worrisome thing for me. It's not just another video trying to explain something about like coaching and stuff. I legitimately believe that this could cause harm to the League of Legends community, in a way that sort of it puts us on a really bad path if Riot does decide to go down the community feedback is king approach. And again, they haven't traditionally. I have a lot of hope for them that they will ignore this problem, and I have more hope that this problem will go away, because it has lasted a long time. That's a bit why I'm worried. But I still think that hopefully this backlash will die down. People will stop watching 1.5-hour videos of Hishinshin talking about shit. And again, it's not just Hishinshin, but that definitely is a big catalyst for all this. All right, peace.